Hi, my name is Joe Bonamassa. Welcome to the beautiful Belly Up Tavern in Solana Beach, California. For one of my first Guitar World columns, we're doing this remotely as I travel all over the world, actually. We're going to talk about a little bit today about tone and my setup. It's most commonly asked questions like, Joe, what do you use for a setup? It's actually very, very simple. It's just you know, 3 amps, 3 variable amps, and 1 amp that's always on. So if you notice behind me, the Silver Jubilee Marshall is the amp that's always on, and that kind of gives you the delay. So that kind of has that sound. And it's a great amp with a great, great effects loop and everything. The amp that I'm using now is the Category 5, which is basically just a beefed up super lead, Marshall, and it gives you that kind of sound like this. Kind of clear, articulate, kind of does that cream thing really well. Another amp that I use is this Carol Ann one. If you notice on the top, it says JB100. I like stuff with my name on it. And that kind of does the reverb sound. It's a little clearer. It's kind of based on an EL34 Dumble style amp, which kind of sounds like this. It's a little brighter and a little more expressive, And I just use a little Boss digital reverb to create the reverb on that amp. It's really, really good. The other amp that I use is a Two-Rock. That's kind of like my main solo sound, and it's all paired with the Marshall. And we'll talk a little bit about why I pair amps in a minute. So this is what the Two-Rock sounds like. So it's kind of like a big Fender, big Marshall thing. And the reason why I pair amps is because I don't really firmly believe in, at least in my world, that there's one amp that does it all. There's many 3-channel amps, there's many amps that claim to do it all. But for me, some amps have, beautiful top, beautiful low end. Some amps have, great mids, but none kind of covers all the bases. So this rig here is just basically 2 amps on it at any time, covering all the bases, the mid-range, the high-end, and the bottom end. So you get this kind of like big, glob of sound. Not to use a bad adjective, but it's basically what it is. It just kind of melts together. And you want to find amps that will work in phase, and you want to find amps that will basically, pair well together. Grounding-wise, it's like, you turn the guitar all the way up, and it's pretty loud, but so there's no grounding issues. And you don't want to shock yourself in the process. Believe me, I've been there and done that. Especially if you're a singer, too. You don't want to get shocked on the microphone. Another good, helpful thing that I use are these Auralex, the Joe Bonamassa signature. Not that I'm plugging anything here today. They're called Great Grandmas. And what they do is they isolate the guitar rig from the stage and create this basically its own platform. So the low end's really true. You don't like some stages you get in, like the Belly Up here. It's a very dry stage. Some stages you get in some of these theaters, they're billed for vaudeville acts. The low end just rolling over. You can't get any articulation. Can't really hear what you're doing. So the Auralex kind of just makes it more consistent. And then if you notice behind it, sitting on top of the Auralex is the plexiglass shield, which allows me to use 4 100-watt amps in a 600 capacity room without basically recreating that scene from the Ten Commandments where Moses parts the Red Sea. So that's pretty much the entire setup. it's a lot simpler than a lot of people think. It's like, they see the rack and they got all this, all these devices there, and it's basically just 2 amps on at the same time, mostly the Marshall, the Jubilee, and then the 3 alternates that create the sound. So you can basically cover all the bases from clean to very saturated. And I don't use an overdrive pedal for clean and distortion. I just use basically my volume control, and I'm constantly working the volume control and the tone control, which is something we talk about a lot. So. That's kind of a clean sound, and within just the touch of a button here. So that's pretty much my entire setup. And there's no magic box, there's no magic cables. You try to use the best cables you can, without spending $8,000 a foot. Mogamis are good, Planet Waves are good. Any 16 gauge wire works good. And for speakers, we use EV12Ls. I like them because we don't have to replace them every week as we burn up voice coils, because they're 200 watts and they can take a lot of punishment from the amps. And just a standard issue Vox wah-wah pedal, some switching, to keep the amps, separated, and a DD3 Boss delay, and a Les Paul. And there you have it. Thanks for watching. I'm Joe Bonamassa.